And okay, so we're going to go through this departmental training guide that you see on my screen. As business officers, business services coordinators, and department chairs, most of you attending this presentation already have access to the new ISSO portal. However, if your department decides to allow others in similar admin positions to gain access and go through this training, this first section of the training guide shows you how to submit a request for another staff member to gain access to the ISSO portal on behalf of your department. Simply click the link shown on page 1 of the training guide, log in using your NinerNet credentials, complete the information in Request Account, and click Submit. So then you're going to allow the ISSO a few days to process your request. An important note here for you is that the decision has been made to limit departmental access to those in business admin type positions. So please do not request access on behalf of faculty. Instead, you will be submitting sponsorship requests on behalf of the faculty supervisor. Mostly this will be department chairs. Next, we're going into the second section here on looking up the employee record in the portal. So depending on whether you are hiring a new H-1B employee or extending a current employee, you'll need to know how to create a new record or look up a pre-existing one. This section provides instructions on both of those scenarios. For initial requests, this includes those outside the US, as well as those who currently hold H-1B status at another institution in the US. For either case, you will need to create a new record. To extend an existing H-1B employee, you'll need to go to the section on looking up a record, which we will get to shortly. In the new ISSO portal, before you submit your sponsorship request, you will first need to obtain a banner ID number and NinerNet credentials on behalf of your employee. Most of you do that anyway, but this is a change from the prior system so that the record needs to have the banner ID attached to it. And the reasons for this are improved institutional data integrity and compliance purposes. I'm going to pass it over to Dylan to take us through the next section.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Dylan Klausner. I'm an International Student and Scholar Advisor here in the ISSO, working with Denise on this presentation for you all today. And right now, we're going to be showing you how to submit a new H-1B request to our office, the ISSO. We're also going to share what that process is like for other stakeholders that you are going to be working with, so you get a real good sense of what the overall picture is, even though you're not doing every single piece yourself. The goal of this training is not to make you an expert in every possible scenario that could arise. Instead, the goal is really to get you to have sort of this basic understanding of the overarching process so you feel comfortable submitting an H-1B request. And by the end of this, you should also know where to get help if there is a more complex situation that comes up with one of your, the faculty that you're trying to hire. So let's dive right into it. To start an H-1B request, you're going to need to log into the ISSO portal. So you can see on the screen there, it's sort of this interface we've got with a lot of green and white going on. Once you're in the portal, you are going to click on departmental services. Okay, so that kind of makes sense. You guys are in a department. You can click on departmental services. You can see that in the red box there. Under the tasks menu, which is the first box outlined in red. You can see it there on the screen. You're going to see add new person. All right, and you're going to click that. We have to add the prospective H-1B employee's information into the system before we can actually start the H-1B request itself. So that button's going to be, really critical for that. All right. Once you've clicked on that, you're going to fill out what we call an e-form. It's basically like an application. And you're going to add some information about this person. A couple things to note. You want to make sure that the name that you're entering matches the person's passport. So even before you get to this stage, you want to make sure that you have that passport prior to starting this. Also, as we mentioned before, you're going to need the 800 number and network ID before you get to this step. So don't try to add a new person before you have those three critical pieces of information. You can see that on the screen here. You got where you add the person's name, the university ID, etc. Once you've added the new person, you're going to move to the next step, which is, at this point, clicking the button for a H-1B initial request. And Denise is going to take you into that part.
Okay, we're gonna put a tiny pause on that and then we're going to take a look instead at looking up the employee record in the portal. So some of you have current H-1B employees that are going to require an extension in the near future. So we're going to go over this section here, okay? To begin, you're going to go to, again, the same thing as before, departmental services right here. And then under tasks, you're going to look for H-1B extension request. That's here in this red box, okay? You're going to look up the record by entering the ID number and date of birth of the employee and click on Find Record. So you see right here, ID, date of birth, find record. Once the record appears, you will have 2 e-forms to complete, as seen here on page 6 of the training guide. Department Initiate Extension Request and Department Actual Wage Information. Just these 2 here. The name of the employee should appear at the top of the page. Complete the information requested, including the new dates, not to exceed 3 years. Remember, because H-1Bs are only up to 3 years at a time based on the funding, and any changes or updates in funding that you may have. Okay, so that's on how to get an H-1B extension started. The next section here we wanted to point out for you are some navigation tips for all e-form requests. And so you'll see what those tips are here. Do not use the browser back button. Instead, click the link at the top of the e-form right here in the red box. Do not use the cancel or edit buttons after submission. Instead, please contact the ISSO. We don't want confusion to happen and for there to be multiple records. Okay, so just reach out if something happened and you made a mistake. And then finally, do not use the new button at the top of an already approved e-form. For the same reasons, we don't want to have confusion and multiple records. So follow these simple steps and you shouldn't have any problems.
All right, so now we're going to go back to that initial H-1B process after Denise explained the extension part. So let's go back to if we have a new H-1B. Under department forms, you're going to click on Department Initiate Request. So at this point, you will have already added you've done the Add New Person e-form. So this is actually the next step. And as part of this step, you're going to have two e-forms to complete. As you can see, Denise is pointing those out in the image there. You'll have to do those before you can move on. Um, so the text in the red box tells you that you have to have the following things in order to do this part successfully. You have to have a copy or the position description from Niner Talent. That's going to be important for you to fill out those e-forms. You also need a copy of the employee's passport. Before, when you were just adding them as a new person, maybe it was just fine for you to have a copy, but now we need the copy as well. And then you'll also need a copy of the employee's CV in order to do these e-forms. And then you're going to select the name of your department from the drop-down menu that you're going to see in one of these e-forms, right? And then you're going to type your name, title, and your email as the host department contact for this H-1B request. You'll type the name, title, and email address of the supervising faculty member or chair. And then you're going to answer some questions about the position and upload some documents. So let's just say that you've done all that. You've got all those documents together. You put everything in. You've completed those e-forms. What happens next? If you want to think of this process as kind of like a train moving from one stop to the next, it's going to collect information or passengers from various stakeholders along the way. So once the information has been collected at each stop, it's going to eventually finally come back to you, and you will do what we call, you'll just do the departmental final submit. So that actually sends our office the application. But let's go kind of a little bit back and go to the first stop. The ISSO, our office we need to make sure that the position that you're trying to request an H-1B for qualifies, is eligible for H-1B status. So we're going to do an initial review once you submit the department initiate request and departmental actual wage information. We have to look that information over to see, does this even qualify? After you submit that, you're going to see that the e-form is pending office review. So you can see that in the screenshot there. Your final department submit button is going to be locked until our office reviews that. After our office gives initial approval, the department administrator, you, will receive an email with instructions for the next steps. And those next steps for you will be to complete and submit your export control form. You're going to do that directly with the export control office, following the steps that are in this training guide. And you'll see that a little bit further along. At that point, you'll have to prepare the offer letter and the contract. You'll prepare the USCIS filing fee checks. As many of you, if you've done an H-1B before, know you have to produce these checks. We have to send them to the government. And then the other thing that you'll do is prepare a shipping label for us to send that package all, over to USCIS so that they can adjudicate that. You will have some time to do these things because the employee or the prospective employee is going to be completing e-forms of their own. They're going to be filling out some information for us as well. So you'll have some time to work on those other items there. Let's just talk for a little bit about the export control process in case you haven't filed an H-1B or J-1 before and you just don't know what that is. Export controls are U.S. government federal laws that restrict the transfer of goods and technology and the performance of services for persons and entities.
Hi, I'm on a training thing.
Okay.
Unless
If you guys could just make sure you stay muted there. Sorry about that. So export controls, basically these laws that the U.S. government has that prevents certain sensitive technologies from going abroad to, state enemies or whatever. At UNC Charlotte, the Vice Chancellor for Research is responsible for implementing and managing the export control procedures, and that unit rests within the Office of Research Protections and Integrity. So you will have to go through that export control process. So let's dig into that a little bit more. The department admin, that's you probably, will go to export controls forms and checklists webpage. You can see the link right there, or on the training guide on page 10, and obtain the appropriate form for an H-1B employee. And we also have a sample of that in the training guides. You can see it there, so you can kind of get a sense of what it is going to ask you. But it's also going to require a signature from the supervisor and should be submitted as soon as possible directly to export control. And you can see their email address there in the training guide. This will allow the export control office to even determine whether an export license is needed or not. And this process can take some time. So you can expect maybe between 1 to 2 weeks. And that office will upload the form directly to the employee's record in our system once everything has been completed by the employee. So just definitely make sure you don't forget the export control process. It is required as part of the H-1B request. And I'm going to hand it back to Denise.
And don't worry, you will get reminders along the way. We have developed a number of emails embedded in the system to kind of help you prepare for what's coming next, because we know it's an overwhelming process. Many of you who have been with me all along, we've exchanged a number of emails and we're always available, but you shouldn't need we shouldn't need the same amount of emails because the system will kind of take you from step to step. Okay, so now it's time for the employee to complete their e-forms. You've done your part. Now it's time for the employee to do their part. And so we don't need them before this point. So again, you won't be completing these steps for yourself, but again, we wanted to show you what the experience looks like. So at this point, the system will invite the employee to log into the portal using their NinerNet credentials to submit a series of e-forms. The employee will receive an email with login instructions, as you can see right here in the training guide. When they click the link and log in, here is what the employee will see when they log into the portal. They will click Initial Request and then submit each of the required e-forms that follow. As you can see here, and right in the portal, it tells them what they need to have ready to upload. Once their final e-form is submitted, and you see how here there's required personal information and required immigration and employment information. Let me see if I can make this a little bigger for you. Don't worry, you'll have your own copy soon. The final one says H-1B submit. It says not yet available. It's locked right now because they need to do these two things first. Once they do these two things, then this will show up and they need to do that final submit, okay? During this time, our office will be in communication with the employee if any clarification is needed, if any questions arise, we will be in touch with them if we need to, okay? And this is where you as a department admin can start to log into their record every once in a while so you can monitor the progress. So this is an improvement over the past where we would have some emails back and forth, right? And so hopefully this will help. And you can, if you get curious or someone gets anxious, you can say, okay, The beneficiary started to complete their forms. That means beneficiary is the employee, the one benefiting from this. So the employee is starting to complete their forms. So you have kind of an idea
How you
of
doing?
where
Hey.
it is.
Yeah.
Um, and so after, yeah, so we encourage you to go ahead and log in so you can see where we are, and we'll show you some other steps along the way where you'll see the different stages. Okay, hand it back to Dylan now.
All right, so let's just assume at this point that the prospective employee has completed their forms. What will happen next? After they submit their forms, you'll get an email that will instruct you to return to the portal and open your current cases and then complete steps 2 and 3. And we'll go over what those are right now. Um, so, uh, so the train is kind of moving along to its final stop here. The final 2 e-forms must be done in a certain order. So you're going to upload the final contract and offer letter, and you're going to confirm the export control has been completed. Ideally, this point, you will have already completed that export control form and submitted it to that office. But if not, this is kind of like a final reminder at this point. It's important to note that the H-1B, H-1 application cannot progress until and unless this is done. So if you want to take a look at the training guide, there's a screenshot on page 17 that talks more about that part of it. Once you've completed steps 2 and 3, you'll receive another email reminder to order the USCIS filing fee checks and the UPS shipping label if you have not already done so. And we already talked a little bit about export control, but after the departmental final submit, so after you've done those last 2 steps here that we talked about, the export control office is notified and they begin their review. So please recall that the export control office has between 1 to 2 weeks to take that time and review that. And so you'll not have any notifications during that time. But you and the employee are welcome to log in to the portal to monitor the overall progress. And we would ask that you do that as opposed to emailing the ISSO. As Denise pointed out, this new system does give you some indication of where things are, whether something at least is completed yet or not. And so that hopefully will be helpful to you. Once the export control office has performed their review, you'll get an email that says the export control outcome, basically, whether a license is required or maybe in some cases not. Page 20 of the training guide does address that a little bit more. If there's no export control license required, the department's complete request form will be routed to our office to do the final or full H-1B review. And then during this time, if we'll be in communication with the employee if we have any questions, final questions before we assemble the H-1B package. Denise?
Yeah, I'm just trying to scroll through the training guide at the same time as we're explaining this. So I'm a little bit delayed. So this is the export control section here. This is what the email will look like. So you can see it'll come to you. Oh no, this is to export control officer saying it's time for you to go ahead and tell us, do your review and let us know your response. Okay. And then this is the result, the export control result email that you will get. And then these are some more of the status bars. So you can see once export control is finished, it comes finally to the ISSO. And so you'll see some time here where ISSO is reviewing additional forms. And then also the employee can see ISSO is reviewing department's additional forms. That's if there's anything additional that we need from you. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about what happens next. Everyone has done great work submitting their e-forms, uploading their documents. Sometimes the employees have historical documents that might take some time to get. So we're working with them. So there's a number of things happening throughout this process, okay? Next is for the ISSO to begin working with human resources to post the notice of intent to hire, which must be posted for 10 business days as per Department of Labor regulations. We're also preparing and submitting the labor certification application. This is also with the Department of Labor. This also takes 10 business days. And then, like I said before, we may also be taking some time to reach out to the employee saying, hey, you answered this question. I need documentation of that. Or you forgot this document, or I can't read this document. Maybe it's a bad copy. So a number of things are happening during that time, okay? This is a complex phase of the process, and this is where we really ask for your ongoing patience. Realistically, this is where maybe 4 to 6 weeks may be necessary, especially if we have a number of cases that we're processing simultaneously. But again, you log into the employee's record during this phase, you'll see these status updates. If you see that it's under ISSO review, again, you need to allow around 4 to 6 weeks for us to get through all of these mandatory parts of the process. Okay. And so here on the training guide, you can see that bulleted list. So now, so the last one of the bulleted list actually is we are processing the request. We mail the entire H-1B to USCIS. That's why we need the shipping label. And then the last, hopefully good news, is that USCIS approved the petition. Once in a while, they might ask for additional information. So that would be a slight delay. We would be notified. If we have it, we would respond to the request. Or if we don't have it, we would reach out to either the employee or the department if we need to do that. Okay. So otherwise, you will probably see these bulleted stages in the record when you log in. Okay. Once the petition has been adjudicated, we will receive an email, and then we will also receive what's called the I-797 approval notice. Okay. If the department uses premium processing, we can expect this adjudication within 15 business days. Otherwise, it can be 6 months or longer. And we're happy to consult on that prior to, as we're getting through the process. Many of you have already done this before. We pretty much strongly recommend premium processing whenever possible, with a couple of exceptions, and we can certainly take those questions as they come. Okay. The employee will then receive an email from us. We will ask them to come and pick up their form I-797 from the ISSO because it's mailed to our office. And then they would take it to Human Resources for I-9 processing so they can go ahead and get on payroll. During this time, the ISSO also holds an orientation program for new international employees. Right now, that's happening the beginning of the fall semester. So we can answer all of their onboarding questions at that time prior to the start of classes. Okay, so that is the end of this 22-page H-1B ISSO portal training guide for department admins. And it concludes the overview of the H-1B sponsorship process. So hopefully by now, you've heard an earful about how to submit an H-1B initial request, how to submit an extension request. You also have a basic understanding of what will be required of the other stakeholders in the process and who the other stakeholders are. But if anything arises, you know where to reach out for help, right? We mentioned before, this portal training guide, it's 22 pages. We spent a lot of time and energy putting it together. We need you to look at it. It's going to be housed on our website under resources for departments. Many of you are aware of it anyway, and I think it was included in the link that I sent yesterday. So as updates or changes happen, we will make them on this document, so you will have the most recent information, okay? You could also rewatch this recording anytime you need to, put it on double speed or whatever, okay? And then, of course, if you have other questions that come up, and they're not covered by either of these resources, or there's some sort of technical issue, which we hope not, please contact the ISSO staff. As always, we appreciate your ongoing partnership, your patience, and your understanding. As a reminder, the portal will go live at noon on Monday, March 24th. So give us the benefit of Monday morning to get all the links updated and everything posted. And as afternoon on Monday, you can begin gathering your information and starting your sponsorship requests. Okay, so now we're going to end the recording and take your questions.